Welcome to Fast Track Gains. I'm here to help you accelerate your gains. This is the second episode of my fifth series, Fat Loss. In this episode, I'm going to talk about all the terminologies you need to understand in order to not be confused when you plan your own fat loss journey. And unlike the boring principles in the last episode, I guarantee this episode will be much more interesting. So if you have not, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and without further ado, it's time for me to show you all the nerdy terms that make fat loss such a confusing game to so many people. Terminology 1. Fat loss is not the same as weight loss. When people talk about weight loss, they only want to lose body fat. You do not want to lose any amount of muscle if necessary. So by default, healthy weight loss means fat loss. And while it is true that in most cases, the majority of weight loss will be fat loss, sometimes fat loss can occur without any weight changes. Example, body recomposition. And sometimes a substantial part of weight loss can be muscle loss. Example, starvation diet. That is why, although weight loss and fat loss are used interchangeably, you have to differentiate fat loss from weight loss. And now is the best time to introduce the concept of body fat percentage. The percentage of your fat mass in relation to your total weight is called your body fat percentage. And the best way to judge your fat loss success is if you have lowered your body fat percentage, not the actual weight on the scale. For example, in this picture, the person started from 35% body fat and finished at 20% body fat. Although his weight on the scale technically stayed the same, 130 pounds. He has lost almost about 20 pounds of body weight, and that is a very impressive result by any standard of measurement. This is why you should not be always obsessed with the number on the scale. You can use it as a rough guidance, but don't use it as the only measurement, because what matters more than total weight is your body fat percentage. This terminology confusion might not be so important to people who value the preservation of muscle mass, but to people who don't care so much about muscle mass and only want to lose body weight. I'm not trying to be a sexist here, but generally speaking, females, it can be very injurious because weight loss at the cost of substantial muscle mass loss is very hard to maintain long term. So be very specific about what you want to lose, and never let the number on the scale be the only dictator of your fat loss results. Terminology 2. Water weight fluctuation. This is one common trap where so many people can fall into. The dramatic weight loss within the first week may make you feel over the moon. But in reality, it does not mean so much for your fat loss success. The body stores ingested carbohydrates as glycogen, and 1 gram of glycogen is attached to 3 grams of water. Studies show that most people can store a maximum of 15 grams of glycogen per kilogram of body weight. So if you weigh 70 kilos, you can store about 1 kilo of glycogen and 3 kilos of water weight attached to it. When people go on fat loss journey, they will usually decrease the carbohydrate intake, which will then decrease the glycogen storage in a short period of time. When the glycogen storage is lowered, you lose the water weight as well. This is why in most cases, the initial 3 to 5 kilos weight loss will be water weight, and why for any fat loss program that contains dietary changes, you have to wait at least for a few weeks to start evaluating the fat loss progress. Conversely, if you're progressing well with your fat loss journey, but one night you had a really salty meal, for example, sushi with dark soy sauce, and the next morning you wake up finding yourself a few pounds heavier. Don't panic yet, as salt forces the body to retain more water, and once you excrete the salt, you will lose the water weight as well. The water weight fluctuation is another reason why you should not be too obsessed with the number on the scale. It can really muddy the water, so to speak. Terminology 3. Fat loss is not the same as fat burning. This is another common myth that I have to debunk. Optimizing fat burning does not mean optimizing fat loss. They're entirely two different things. Yet so many people intentionally trying to make you think they're the same thing so they can sell you their nonsense. When people talk about fat burning, what they're really referring to is using fat as energy source. In reality, your body is burning fat all the time. It is constantly using both fat and carbohydrate as fuel sources. Fat burning is purely hinged on the intensity of activity and has nothing to do with the laws of thermodynamics. The higher the intensity, the more carbohydrate the body will use. The lower the intensity, the more fat the body will use. As a matter of fact, your body uses the highest percentage of fat, about 70% during sleep, as fuel source. So if optimizing fat burning equals to optimizing fat loss, then the best strategy to lose body fat would be to sleep all day, every day. Does that sound logical to anyone? On the other hand, fat loss is purely hinged on the laws of thermodynamics and has nothing to do with the intensity of activity. It really does not matter if you create a caloric deficit by doing steady-state cardio or doing high-intensity interval training or simply eating less calories. As long as there's a deficit, your body will lose body fat regardless of how much fat you have actually burned. To further help you understand the difference between fat burning and fat loss, I'm going to put a link out there for you guys, a video done by Dr. Lane Norton for you to reference. But for now, just remember, fat burning does not mean fat loss. Period. Terminology 4. Energy density. You may have heard it thousands of times, but eat less and move more is an oversimplified explanation that does not take another critical factor into fat loss consideration. What eat less actually means is that you have to eat less calories. And of course, if you do not change what you eat, you do have to reduce your quantities to reduce your calories. However, if you're willing to change what you eat, you do not have to necessarily reduce the quantities to reduce your calories. This is where the notion of energy density comes in. At one end of the spectrum, we have chips, cookies, and donuts that give you tons of calories with little volume. Whereas at the other end, we have skinless chicken breast, leafy greens, and berries that give you tons of volume with very little calories. Once you master the game of energy density, you can technically eat more to lose body fat because you have chosen foods that are low in energy density. Then you will never complain that you are suffering from hunger on your own fat loss journey. Terminology 5. Satiety per calorie. Satiety per calorie is the inverse of energy density. Foods that are high in energy density, chips, cookies, and donuts, they tend to be very low in satiety per calorie. Foods that are very low in energy density, skinless chicken breast, leafy greens, and berries, they tend to be very high in satiety per calorie. The notion of satiety per calorie has been popularized by Ted Naiman. And to directly quote from him, if there's a food that only contains 1 calorie but gives you tons of satiety, then you're going to lose all the weight you want. And for your guys' reference, I'm going to put another link out there. This is a video of an interview of Ted Naiman on the That Doctor YouTube channel. This interview is the official wrap-up of the whole channel. That ought to tell you how quality this interview is. Go ahead and watch it. You will learn a lot from this good doctor. Hunger is usually the greatest threat during fat loss, and the key to avoiding hunger is choose foods that are high in satiety per calorie. This is why the traditional chicken breast and broccoli are always the staple for any fat loss diet, because they give you the highest satiety per calorie. You see, we bodybuilders, we have figured this out decades ago. Terminology 6. Protein leverage. The protein leverage hypothesis was developed by Professor David Rubenheimer and Stephen Simpson at the University of Sydney in 2005. It suggests that humans prioritize protein intake and tend to overeat calories when protein intake is lower than a target, leading to an increased overall energy intake. Essentially, the body aims for a certain level of protein consumption, and if that target has not been met, it compensates by eating more of other foods, like fats and carbohydrates, to make up for the protein deficiency. So, according to this hypothesis, the more concentrated protein source you include in your nutrition, the less energy you're going to consume. The less concentrated protein source you include in your nutrition, the more energy you're going to consume. And if you look at overeating through the lens of protein leverage, you will find all the obesogenic foods, chips, cookies, and donuts. They're all super low in protein. And that's how powerful the protein leverage is. And the reason why nowadays it is almost standard practice for dietitians to establish your daily protein intake amount first, before they even think about how to manipulate your daily calories. So use this leverage wisely, and you will control your calories much more easily. Okay, a quick summary. All the terms I have mentioned in this episode, they may be nerdy, but they all have their own influence on fat loss in one way or another. And you need to familiarize yourself with all these different influences, so when planning your own fat loss journey, you will not be sailing in uncharted territory. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next episode. Peace out.